Welcome everyone, I'm Spiro for Newsbud.com. This was another big week for Newsbud, lots going on, lots to cover, and some important updates. Newsbud reached out to Mike Runny, the man who wrote the EurasiaNet hit piece on investigative journalist Ileana, and her story exposing the CIA-NATO gun-running operations to terrorists. And we will share with you his response. Plus, I'm going to show you what you've missed just in the last week alone if you're not already a member of the Newsbud community. A Newsbud membership gets you full access to a lot of top-notch, hard-hitting content every week for a very low price. We'd like to thank everyone who has been signing up, and the only reason Newsbud is here is because of your support. We have only been around for about a year, and we are 100% people-funded. No ad money, no foundation sugar daddy money. We are only funded through your subscriptions and donations. So that's why pretty much all of our content is only available to our community members, because they make Newsbud possible. Now, recently we revised our subscription page to make it easier for you to join. In addition to accepting PayPal, we now accept all major credit cards. And if you take a look at the About Us page on the Newsbud website, you will see we have put together an amazing team of experts and professionals who cut through the disinformation and propaganda that is everywhere. Newsbud is exposing corruption and providing expert analysis every single day. So make sure you sign up today. Some big announcements coming up next week. Newsbud will be launching and announcing our brand new Newsbud Digital TV. And we'll be releasing our first mini documentary produced by Newsbud with Peter Lee. This will be the first of several Newsbud-produced original documentary films. Our viewers and supporters will be able to stream and watch our documentary productions and other select shows right from their living room on their TV. Additionally, the Newsbud DVD store will be launching next week, so please stay tuned for further announcements. Now, yesterday, Newsbud published an explosive interview with Newsbud founder Sibel Edmonds and investigative journalist Ileana. The episode is titled Major Development, Deep State Rattled. Smear Campaign on Persecuted Journalists Begins. Investigative journalist Ileana has come under fire and is the target of a smear campaign by the deep state media for exposing the CIA-NATO gun-running operations, supplying weapons to terrorists via Azerbaijan on diplomatic flights. In addition to being interrogated by national security services, she was fired from her job. The news site EurasiaNet published a hit piece by Mike Runny on the investigative journalist Ileana and her report on the CIA-NATO weapons shipments to ISIS and Al-Qaeda on diplomatic flights, stating that the report was inaccurate and flawed, and that she was not fired but had quit her job. Now, if you've not seen this video yet, you need to. They go on record in response to the desperate attempt by the rattled deep state through launching their media smear campaign, and Sibel Edmonds exposes the deep state network behind this attack. Do not miss this powerful 30-plus minute exclusive interview and discussion with persecuted journalist Ileana and FBI whistleblower Sibel Edmonds, who goes on record naming names, only available at newsbud.com.
Giving platform to courageous, independent, investigative journalists and exposing the deep state is one of our main objectives here at Newsbud. This major expose by Ileana on CIA-NATO arming ISIS and Al-Qaeda terrorists could not have been possible without Newsbud's subscribing community members. We thank them all. This is why Newsbud has been set up as a two-way partnership between we, the independent journalists and producers, and our community members. They back and support us with their subscription and donation, and we bring to them one-of-a-kind journalism not found anywhere else. There's so much more to be investigated and exposed, and to do that, we need our activist community members' backing. Don't wait. Come and join Newsbud's unmatched activist community. Subscribe today.
An important update to this story, Newsbud reached out to EurasiaNet and the author of this hit piece, Mike Runny. While we have not heard back yet from EurasiaNet, we did hear back from the author. I sent Runny an email informing him of our recent interview with Ileana, providing him the link to it, in response to his hit piece, and I told him that Ileana had provided Newsbud with signed and dated documents that contradicted the claims made in his article, specifically asking him what information and documentation did he base his article on. And his reply was basically, it says right here, "Why are you asking me?" So I replied, because it is your article, and it is your job as a journalist to fact check, not just write unsubstantiated claims. Did you perform this simple journalistic principle? His response was, yep. So I said, okay, well, please provide us with that documentation. And we've not heard back. Then Runny took to Twitter, tweeting his editor at EurasiaNet with screenshots of my emails. So Newsbud's Sibel Edmonds, myself, and Diliana decided to take this opportunity to respond directly to Runny. Ultimately, these emails show that the author of this hit piece did not fact-check the claims of the editor at Trud, the newspaper that fired Diliana. So this man and EurasiaNet are publishing allegations as if they were fact. But if you look at the bottom of the hit piece, you will see a disclaimer by EurasiaNet to distance themselves from the author. I also asked Mr. Runny about if he would provide Newsbud with information about who funds EurasiaNet. He hasn't responded to our emails, and in fact, he locked his Twitter account. But we were able to find out that EurasiaNet has received support and funding from the Harriman Institute, which is supported by Henry Kissinger, Madeleine Albright, and the late Zbigniew Brzezinski, and George Soros' Open Society Foundation. Now, these are just a few of the names that are ultimately behind this attack. So stay tuned for more upcoming developments on this story. This week, Newsbud published an explosive report examining the long-standing relationship between the government and Hollywood, specifically the Department of Defense and the Central Intelligence Agency, and their influence over the film and television industry. In this jam-packed expose, Newsbud is joined by investigative journalist Daniel Hopsiker, as he is calling foul on the upcoming Hollywood production American Made. The movie American Made is allegedly based on the true story of the famous drug runner Barry Seal, who allegedly worked for the CIA, the DEA, and Pablo Escobar. Investigative journalist Daniel Hopsiker is an expert on the illegal drug trade, the CIA, and Barry Seal, writing multiple books and producing his own documentaries, plus his own investigations over the years, going back into the 90s. Hopsiker blows the lid off of this upcoming Hollywood CIA attempt to spin one of the biggest U.S. drug lords. Find out why Hopsiker is raising hell exclusively at Newsbud.com. Now, on Wednesday, September 6th, Newsbud published an exclusive report by Sibel Edmonds titled Agents of Terror on Government Payroll Part 2, Ali Mohammed. In this explosive report, Edmonds diligently documents how Ali Mohammed, one of top 5 al-Qaeda operatives, Osama bin Laden's bodyguard and trainer who blew up 2 U.S. embassies in Africa and involved in the 9/11 planning, was on the payroll of 3 U.S. agencies, the Pentagon, the CIA, and the FBI. Furthermore, she exposes the cover-up, including Mohammed's secret court hearings, not being sentenced, and never receiving a day of jail time. Edmonds counters the establishment narrative on Mohammed triple-crossing 3 U.S. agencies. This is the most complete and comprehensive report all in one place on Ali Mohammed, and you won't find this report anywhere else. It's only available at Newsbud.com. Now tomorrow, Sunday, September 10th, Newsbud is hosting the first annual 9/11 Activist Summit Titans of Truth. This is a live, interactive, participatory online conference with an all-star panel. This year's panel, we have FBI whistleblower, founder and editor of Newsbud, Sibel Edmonds, investigative journalist and producer, James Corbett, 6-time former U.S. Congresswoman and 9/11 investigator Cynthia McKinney, investigative journalist, author, and intelligence expert Wayne Madsen, best-selling author and producer, the man who exposed the Bilderberg Group, Daniel Esterlin, plus 2 distinguished guests from the 9/11 whistleblowers and scholars community. Attendees will also get the chance to ask the all-star panel their questions about 9/11. This is a one-of-a-kind event we are very excited about, and we'd like to thank everyone who signed up. We'll see you all there tomorrow. President Donald Trump cited 9/11 more than once as the justification to increase the longest war in U.S. history, Afghanistan. In this week's episode of Newsbud's Geopolitical Report with Kurt Nimmo, Nimmo breaks down the flip-flop of Trump on Afghanistan and exposes how the U.S. and Pakistani intelligence are primarily responsible for the rise of the Mujahideen and later al-Qaeda by training, arming, and funding the terrorist groups. Nimmo documents how the supposed leader of al-Qaeda, bin Laden, worked with the CIA and covers the utterly disgusting cost of these illegal, undeclared wars. Not just the trillions of dollars, but the millions of lives lost, most of which are innocent lives of civilians. Be sure to see this full episode exclusively at Newsbud.com. This week on Newsbud's Russian newspaper monitor, Professor Philip Kovacevic breaks down how the U.S. military increase in Afghanistan could seriously threaten China's One Belt, One Road, and is turning into another proxy war with Russia and could lead to the strengthening of ISIS instead of destroying them. Kovacevic also covers how the U.S. and NATO are not only propping up the government of Ukraine, but they are preparing it for war with Russia. This could lead to Ukraine becoming the next Syria, with massive casualties and hundreds of thousands of refugees that would cripple Europe. As Kovacevic points out, the Atlanticist agenda is to add further fuel to the fire to cause a much bigger and more violent conflict in the near future, as they have been arming the Ukraine forces with very lethal weapons. Will the Western attempts to destabilize Russia be successful? Find out exclusively at Newsbud.com. On Friday, September 8th, Newsbud presented an exclusive hard-hitting article by Kurt Nimmo titled, "Pentagon Steps Up Attacks in Oil-Rich Somalia." In this article, Nimmo documents the ongoing war quietly being launched and carried out by the U.S. and AFRICOM in Somalia, with the underreported daily civilian casualties. Nimmo delves into Trump's authorizing the deployment of troops to the embattled Horn of Africa nation for the first time since 1994, and how Barack Obama continued the policy of his predecessor in Africa by authorizing bombing operations, drone attacks. Further, he slams the U.S. media's role in cranking up the propaganda in support of military action in Africa, and how the war on terror is being used to provide cover for the deep state's efforts to secure not only oil, but a significant treasure of other vital natural resources in Africa. Make sure you read this hard-hitting expose exclusively available to Newsbud activist community members. Now, here at Newsbud, we also like to keep tabs on the spending habits of the military-industrial complex to see where your hard-earned tax dollars are going. Every month, Newsbud publishes a one-of-a-kind report by our military expert, Christian Sorensen. In this month's report titled, "A Distillation of Department of Defense Funding Priorities for August 2017, you can see in the month of August alone, the DoD spent over $35.6 billion on 306 individual contracts. And this doesn't even include the additional $3+ billion on 18 separate foreign military sales transactions. That is well over $1 billion a day that the military-industrial complex is making to fight these undeclared wars all over the world. There is literally so much information in these reports, like who is getting the contracts and what the contracts are for. There could be a whole show dedicated to this one report alone, and you won't find anything else like it online. On this week's episode of Newsbud's Battlefield America with top constitutional attorney John W. Whitehead, titled, "Freedom for the Speech We Hate, the Legal Ins and Outs of the Right to Protest," Whitehead breaks down how the right to free speech is being decimated across the country, as the politically correct philosophy has evolved to acceptable speech versus hate speech. But really, the message being conveyed is that you don't have the right to express yourself if certain people or groups don't like or agree with what you're saying. We all need to defend everyone's right to free speech, even if we may not agree with what they're saying. Newsbud's China Watch is a must-see for everyone. Peter Lee does an amazing job every week breaking down all of the latest developments in China, North Korea, U.S. foreign policy, and Asia in general. In this episode, find out about back-channel communications between the U.S. and North Korea, and the nuclear strategy that could undermine China's grip on North Korea exclusively at Newsbud.com. Newsbud also offers our own aggregated news, and we call it Sibel's Picks. It's the best source for aggregated news online. Every week you get over 100 links that are hand-picked by Newsbud's founder, Sibel Edmonds. And you get all of this, Sibel's Picks, the exclusive articles, the investigative reports, the interviews, the roundtables, every week at Newsbud.com exclusively for our community members. So make sure you sign up today for access to all this content and more. Now, once you subscribe, your price is locked in and will never increase. Now, we want to be able to deliver the best to our activist community members, but we need your support to do so. Thank you all for your support, and stay tuned for next week's lineup.